Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch. I am Kathleen Bolt. I am your host for the Medium's Porch, which is a Lily Dale radio program. And we come to you through the year with information about spiritualism and about mediumship and other subjects related to the metaphysical and spiritual practice. And today we are continuing with our conversations with Lily Dale mediums. As many of you know that have watched this before, we do bring in the mediums to speak with us so we can understand better the power, the privilege, and the process of spirit communication. With this session that I've been doing, this series for the springtime, we are bringing in Lily Dale mediums. So you have an opportunity to get to know them and get a sense of what they're about, what their values are, and what to expect. And today we are privileged to have with us Brenda Hawkins. And Brenda, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful morning.
And Brenda is someone I have worked alongside with in the Mediums League. And I have found Brenda to be an inspiration for myself, a growing and practicing medium as well. And she is well experienced in the art of understanding human beings. She is not only a medium, she has trained as a clinical therapist, a psychotherapist at the doctorate level, and she has worked in Georgia. She has worked and specialized in adult and geriatric practices, as well as trauma patients, patients that have had to have addiction issues. So she's very well versed in working with you if this is something that you're struggling with. She has also worked with borderline personality disorder. Now, Brenda is, you'd be surprised to find this out, but she is a fireball. She has been doing this for 38 years, and she segued from her two-world practice. And what I mean by that is not so much the mediumship, but she has practiced as a clinical therapist for 38 years. And in those 38 years, she has touched the souls and supported people in healing all this time, walking those worlds of going back and forth between therapy and mediumship. So I want to introduce you to her as we have here. She's going to tell us a little bit more about all her publications and the offices of national professional associations that she's worked with and published in. She's also a very good public speaker. So I'd like to continue here to bring you Brenda. Brenda, tell us a little bit about where you are now.
Where I am now, it's been a long journey. Or as the Grateful Dead sing, what a long, strange journey it's been.
Yeah, well, you started doing readings. The first time you started doing readings for mediumship, you were doing it in a little health food store in a place called, you said, Stone Mountain. Is that right?
In Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing that on the weekends on the side. Okay, it was a very nice change of activity from my regular clinical work and also being on call 24/7, 365 for years on end, actually decades. So I enjoyed doing that also. So I would, and also too, I was lucky enough to have professors when I was a doctoral student who encouraged my intuitive functioning. For example, when we would be, because every time we would work with people, our professors would watch us through the one-way mirror, and then we would have to get together with our professors and they would say, well, what was going on with you when this happened or that happened, or when you paused here? And I would say, well, I got an image of him so-and-so doing thus and such, or this going on. And then my professors would say, well, why didn't you share that with them? And I'd say, well, I don't know. It wasn't one of the skills that we were taught. And the core dimensions, empathy, respect, unconditional positive regard, empathic understanding, all of that stuff, plus the hardcore tools that we learned. So it just never occurred to me to do that, but it wound up really working well with people. As my professors used to say, when we were doing group supervision, doing group psychotherapy, he would say in supervision group, Now, Larry, when you see Brenda starting to shift around on the beanbag chair, be ready to jump on the next person who speaks because they're about to railroad the whole process.
Oh, wow.
She's got radar.
She's got radar. I love that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
intuition is natural to all of us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It is.
And I know there's a lot of healers out there that do hands-on healings or Reiki. And as they work with that, they start to develop their own intuition and they can start to receive messages and information, whether it be symbolic or whether it be actual conversation with the spirit world. So I think that's fabulous. And it's really wonderful to know that your people that were supporting your work and they were watching you through the one-way mirror, that they actually gave you that opportunity and encouraged it. That's a surprise to me. And I'm so delighted to hear that.
Yeah, and this was back in the 1970s. So that was what, how many years ago? 50 some years ago.
Right. Now, let me
Yeah.
ask you this because I know as a medium, sometimes what happens, you were working basically 24/7 on call for this stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
doing this work on the side, how did you manage your energy stores? How did you work with setting boundaries and establishing yourself as having the energy to be fully present for that intuitive?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, one thing I did, well, there were a number of things I did. Number one, I worked out twice a day and I
Oh,
did charity 5Ks.
wow.
And yeah, and even in graduate school, I had a workout routine. And this was before it was acceptable for women to go into the gym. But I figured I paid my activity fee just as the guys did. So I was entitled to use the equipment too. Okay.
For you.
Even though they would stand over me like this, trying to intimidate me, I just go ahead and do my bench presses and all that. So yeah, exercise is real important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding as you get older, you have to kind of modify that a bit, you might say. Okay, you have to be age appropriate, listen to your body. That's also part of developing intuitively, also, is listening to your body. Also, that's part of doing psychotherapy with people. So, anyway, I also had a meditation practice, still do, okay, to
Beautiful.
kind of regroup, refocus. Because as a friend of mine, a very wonderful retired medium in Atlanta would say, when you go fast forward a lot, sometimes you just have to go into park. Okay.
I like that. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
simple analogy. Yeah.
And that's also when we listen to spirit, because we do a lot of talking to spirit, even as we're driving down the road or trying to find a parking space, whatever it is we're doing. Um, so it's good to have that quiet time, both to let ourselves kind of regroup and also too to listen to whatever kind of guidance spirit might be having for us, as well as looking for signs around us in everyday life. So anyway, yeah, meditation, exercise. I also was lucky enough to live near a wonderful farmer's market that had just about everything. So I managed to cook everything from scratch back then. I know that can be difficult in this day and age, but yeah, it's important to be aware of what we eat. Okay. And let's see, there was something else. Can't think of it right now. It'll probably pop
Probably,
in
right? You
later.
have to sleep. Right? You got to make sure you get enough sleep.
Yeah, sleep for sure. That's for sure. You got to get sleep. Yeah. So, like for me, I would learn to wake up and go into therapy mode. Okay. If I had to answer a call at 2:30 in the morning, jump in the car, meet the cops over at the hospital, get that person admitted. Fortunately for me, on my caseload, that happened only once. We do sub for one another if we go away on vacation or to a conference. So I've done that for other therapists too. But yeah, you have to be able to jump into that mode and then go back home and try to get maybe the 2 hours more sleep that you have before you have to get up and start the day again. So you learn to shift gears a lot.
Yeah, it
And
sounds very intense. So it sounds like your practice really, your practice of meditation and all the other things that you've listed really had supported you.
it
And
really did.
I feel
Hmm.
like so many people today are missing that. You know, they're missing
Hmm.
that knowledge. I don't just mean mediums, just people in general. Is somehow we've pulled away for the sake of convenience and don't
Right.
recognize some of the value of that personal practice of taking care of ourselves and eating,
Hmm.
all because
And
we want
also,
that.
for sure. And also, another important thing too is doing your own therapy.
Oh, tell us more about
Okay. Yeah. I remember my professor saying that we cannot take our clients or patients to a higher level of functioning than we are ourselves. And we have to know what is our, I'm going to modify the words here, what is our stuff and what is the other person's stuff. Okay. My supervisors tended to use more colorful language. Okay. But yeah, what is your stuff? What is the other person's stuff? And I find that that's also important too. Like, say, when you're doing a reading, just being aware of your own stuff and also working through some old issues so you don't project anything onto the person that you're reading for.
that. Okay. Now,
Okay.
what are the
Yeah.
ways you would suggest somebody does that work for themselves?
Okay. To do that, okay, I find that it's best to go to a qualified therapist, okay, who's licensed, credentialed, experienced, and also has training in cognitive behavioral therapy, humanistic therapy, and also is open to transpersonal psych, who knows some about transpersonal psych, comparative religion and spirituality, who has been educated in that area too. So they know what it is that you're dealing with and working with.
Right.
And Stanislav Grof, he's a psychiatrist who is very prominent in the transpersonal psych area. And he talks about the concept of spiritual bypass. And he says that oftentimes you'll find people in the spirituality area who haven't done their own personal work. And so they get into a state of spiritual bypass where
Oh,
they have problematic relationships. They're projecting onto other people, either in a reading or in their daily lives. Um, Things tend to be a bit dysfunctional.
okay.
And it can also stop you from developing further.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I found that to be real helpful. With psychologists are always encouraged to be in therapy. Okay.
Yeah.
Or and at least some supervision. Okay. And so, yeah, I've done that a lot. Okay. All of my colleagues have done that a lot. In graduate school, we were required to go through therapy. We even got tested, we went through a battery of psychological tests. I don't know if they can do that nowadays or not. Okay. But that's what we went through.
Wow.
And as part of our training, we went through a broad range of therapy, different types of therapeutic approaches.
Hmm.
So it really helps you to understand other people uh, with the empathic understanding that I mentioned earlier. Okay, that helps a lot with being able to tune into other people. It helps with doing readings and being open to spirit and feeling spirit and having that empathic understanding of them also and
Right.
what they went through and what they were like personality wise and the things they dealt with.
So
So it all kind of intersects.
it does, doesn't it? And you had noticed, well, you mentioned that you noticed when you were working with clients, spiritual bypass is clearly an issue for the clinician or for the medium if we're not doing
Mm-hmm.
our. You also noticed when
Yeah.
you were sitting with clients that you found they needed more. They needed more than the therapy. They needed to address the grief, the loss, and that spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little more about that discovery process or anything people would want to know about how important that part of our life is to be addressed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like say with the issue of loss, and we all deal with loss in different ways, whether it's the loss of a person, the loss of one of our companion animals. Okay, which that's a very special connection right there. You can probably see my cat tree in the background.
I wonder, does she like cats?
Oh, I like cats and dogs both. I miss my rescued Sheltie. I really do. Um, but let's see, where are we going with this?
We were talking about how you worked with clients, what you learned, how you saw
Yeah,
that
the
important
losses that we
grief
go through.
process.
Yeah, loss of people, loss of companion animals, loss of a job, loss of status, loss of a stage of life. Okay. Um, Loss of a career, loss of health. They're all different kinds of losses that we deal with. And a reading can help with that as well as psychotherapy. You don't want your medium to be doing psychotherapy with you and vice versa. It needs to be two different people. Okay.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
because the notification is very specific for each. Mhm.
it is. It
In
really
your
is.
case, except in your case, because you have both of those backgrounds. Not to
Yeah.
mention
Well,
comparative religion studies, you have that as well.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't do readings per se when I'm working with the client. It's more just an intuitive. If I see the person as, say, a 5-year-old, I might ask, uh, what happened? Can you tell me some about what happened when you were about 5 years old? And
Right.
they won't even be knowing I'm getting an image or anything. It's just another open-ended question.
So it becomes a tool for you, but an
Yeah.
open-ended question for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And invariably they'll say, well, as a matter of fact, this happened.
And then you
Yeah.
get your immediate validation as a medium too, because that or as
Right, right.
intuitive. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it really dovetails nicely. And for some people who are dealing with losses when they come in for a reading, okay, if they're dealing with the loss of a person, okay, or a companion animal, largely they're mainly wanting to know if they're okay. Are they still out there? Do they still love them? And as you and I both know, love doesn't die, and
Right.
we don't die. We just change from one form to another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And knowing that that is the case doesn't necessarily uh, give enough information if we just tell somebody that. And that's where the evidence
Right.
comes in, right? What we call evidence as mediums, where we have to bring the pieces of information that we lay before the client so the client can recognize the validity of that to their life and their understanding that they're still with them.
Exactly. For example, being able to describe how the person looked, what their hair was like, how tall were they, short were they, uh, did they walk with a limp? Was their right leg amputated? Because, like times when I've seen someone with, I could see them down to their right knee, and then beyond that, I didn't see anything. And I was feeling, um, um, what's it called? Kind of like the ghost phantom limb.
There
Thank
you
you.
go. Yeah,
Ghost pain. Yeah, phantom limb.
sure.
Yeah, and you bring that in, and it's like, yes, that's it. Or you say a certain word in a certain way. Or
Mhm.
like this one woman when I was uh, doing a reading, and this was when I was in doing the readings at that little health food store. And I came in one Saturday, and the woman who owned it said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. We have a woman who uh, called in this morning, and she woke up, and her husband was lying dead next to her."
Oh no.
And I said, "Okay, I'll be glad to see her." And meanwhile, I'm thinking inside myself, do I put on my psychologist hat or do I put on my medium hat?
Yeah.
Do I do crisis intervention? What do I do? Okay. So I thought, okay, deep breath. You'll know what to do when she gets here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So when she came in, she looked at me and she says, they said you were here. And with that, she put his ring and his watch in my hands. I thought, okay, I know what to do. And so then we sat down and I said a brief prayer. I always like to start with a real brief prayer. And then the words I heard myself say was, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. And I heard her gasp, and she said, my husband was an atheist, and when we would go different places and if something struck him as strange, he would always say, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he was just so surprised that being an atheist, because atheists are very devout people. They're very devout people,
Exactly.
because it takes a lot of belief, a lot of faith to believe in their spiritual path, just like it takes faith for everyone else to believe in their respective spiritual paths. It's just one spiritual path like any other. Okay. So anyway, yeah, at least that's how I see it.
I like
Okay.
how you see it. That I've never thought of it that way, and I think that makes sense. But it also feels right because it's a to your spiritual position.
Right, right. Yeah, it makes complete sense to me, and it was so healing for her because she was afraid. She told me afterwards, she said that since her husband was an atheist, she was afraid that he would be out in some void somewhere alone and scared and all that. And here he comes in saying, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. And
That
that
is
gave her a lot of
perfect.
comfort too. Yeah, he's still himself and he's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she could totally resonate with that fact because that related right back to her. He was speaking to her.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that was just something that was between the two of them, like an inside joke.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, have you had it happen, since you said inside joke, have you had it happen where people make agreements before they cross over with their loved one that when you come back, you're going to say blue Ferrari or something? They think of a symbol or some sort of specific, or maybe a word, like out of
Mm-hmm.
something, might be obscure and unique. And then they're expecting the medium. Have you been put in that position by your clients as medium?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
people come in wanting the password.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what I'll often say, it doesn't happen too often, but I've had a few say that. And what I'll say, the way I handle it is I'll say, well, if I start trying to zone in on words, that's going to activate a different part of my brain, and I want to stay connected to you and to them. So what we'll do is we'll just see what he or she is wanting to say, and sometimes it'll just come up in talking.
Got it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People
Yeah.
receive that pretty well, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Just like there was this one person who came in for a reading, and uh, I was bringing in a female relative of his, and I was getting just generalized symptoms and stuff, but I wasn't knowing how to really say what it was. And of course, we can't diagnose or prescribe either. But I wasn't getting from the person anything specific like a chest pain or this or that. It was just general systems. And so anyway, so we continued to talk. We identified her personality, this and that and the other, and how she wore her hair, etc., and some of the things that went on in the family. And then I said to him, she's showing me the numbers ALS. I said, and what I'm getting from her was that she had ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a rare disease.
Mm-hmm.
And he just welled up. That was what he was needing to hear. And that he was already getting proof that she was okay, she could talk, she could do all sorts of things, but he just needed to hear ALS. For him,
Right.
that was his password.
Yes. Yeah,
So I just,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, you have to trust medium, trust spirit. okay, to bring in what's necessary for that person and what's needed.
Yes, and that's exactly where I was going, but from a different point of view. From the medium's point of view, I know when you do this kind of thing where you're not getting the evidence the way you might have somewhere else, you know, you didn't get the chest pain to make it clearer. When you get that more vague feeling, you have to trust spirit, because there's a reason you're not getting more, because
Right,
of
because
the actual occurrence that happened.
yeah, there are some conditions that do work systemically, and so you will feel it in all of the different symptoms, cerebral palsy, things like that. With Parkinson's, I get a lot of shaking,
Mm-hmm.
very severe shaking. Um, the animals, well, yeah, the animals will refer to how they pass too oftentimes. And they do it in a very different way, okay? Because they don't talk, yeah, obviously they don't say words like ALS or, cerebral palsy or things like that. And those are mainly human conditions anyway. But they will give us the feelings. And what I get from a lot of animals who come in, and this is true whether it's cats, dogs, turtles. I've had a pot-bellied pig come in one time, and there's a funny story about that too.
Oh, please
Um,
tell, yeah.
but yeah, remind me to talk about the
Okay.
pig. Okay. Um, yeah, they will give you how they were feeling. And if they were, a lot of people call it euthanized, what they regard it as is being released, like
Oh.
they've been let off the leash. And what I'll get from them is finally the doctor gave me the right medicine. That's how they see it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, because they just want to be comfortable and they want to be happy and they want to love you.
Yes.
They're not as attached to our bodies as we get attached to their bodies. We like to hold them and pet them and snuggle with them. And in the case of my cats, they climb up on me, climb on top of my head. They do all sorts of things. Okay. And dogs do a lot of things too. And so we get attached to their bodies. And when they leave their bodies, we feel like, oh, we've lost them forever. But they are still with us. Cats will come back, dogs will come back. You might feel them uh, jump on top of the bed when you're going to sleep at night, even if they weren't allowed when they were in the body. They're jumping on the bed now. Okay. But they are thankful to their humans for letting them go when it's time. And then there are others who, like say, I've talked to cats who, and also dogs who were hit by a car. And what would happen, what I've heard from them consistently is they left their body before the impact. They weren't there. So they were never hurt. They were never scared. There were family members and other animals there to greet them. Okay. Just like we humans have homecoming parties when we cross over. People are there waiting for us, and our companion animals too. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I've always learned from the animals that when they're crossing over, they're not scared, they're not in any pain, no matter
Beautiful.
how it was they passed. And that love is still there. They still come to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they will help us pick out um, our next companion, or they
Oh,
will talk with our
yes, I was
next
coming to
companion
that.
and say, hey, pick her, pick her. Because
Where they come
the
in
old
with
saying,
approval, like, oh, I love that puppy that you've got. And, there's a way of
right.
understanding that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have no jealousy. Sometimes people are afraid of, gee, if I get another pet, so and so will be jealous because I'll be petting this one instead of him or her. And that's not the case. They're not jealous. They still love us. They still come to visit us. And what makes us happy makes them happy. It gives them joy. So when they see us playing with another animal, they feel joy.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, okay, I've got so and so on the earth plane to take care of my person now.
So tell us about the pot-belly pig.
Oh, wow. The potbelly pig. Oh, wow. Okay, I was talking to a woman doing a reading, and I kept seeing this pig suddenly in between her and me, and it was wearing a pink tutu. And I'm thinking, okay. And I'd never seen a pig come into a reading before. So I thought, okay, I want to sort out whether this is something to do with me, my stuff, or is it the client's connection. And so I continued bringing in other stuff from spirit, other information, and the pig comes in again. Thinking, okay, that's the second time. And I'm continuing to do the reading. Finally, the pig came in for a third time. And I said to her, this may sound unusual, but I have a pig here wearing a pink tutu. And I heard her gasp, and she said, oh, well, that's so and so. That's my pet pig. She passed away recently, and I've been wanting to connect with her.
Oh, fantastic.
I said, well, she's here wearing the pink tutu. And she says, well, I always dressed her up in a pink tutu. And I felt this itch. And I said, well, she says that the tutu itched her. but she liked showing off the tutu. It just itched a little.
Gosh, that's a cute story. That's really cute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have to be
you have to say
pardon?
what you have to say what spirit gives you.
Exactly. Again, that brings in the issue of faith. We have to have a lot of faith in spirit.
Thank you for bringing
And
that up.
also know and always be checking it. Is this my stuff, or is this material for my client here?
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there are times when we laugh in a reading. There was um, a wonderful medium here in Lilydale, Gretchen Clark, who used to say, "Spirit loves a bit of whimsy."
Yes.
And I'll always remember that. She said that a good, 20 years ago.
Mm.
Spirit loves a bit of whimsy. And it's so true. They will teach through humor, they will heal through humor. So, yeah, humor is a very sacred thing. So, and it's not unusual for people on spirit side to make jokes or do
Yeah.
silly things because they're wanting to get things across to us.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I've had that experience too. And sometimes I worry that if I burst out laughing because of something spirit said, that I have to explain why I'm laughing so my client doesn't think that I'm laughing at them or there's something else going on. It's like, no, they just made me laugh. They must have a sense of humor. And then of course it's always yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And also too, it can be their way too of communicating that, yes, they feel good, they feel happy, and they have things to laugh at over there.
Right. And their personality's showing up then. So that
And their
becomes
personality, yeah.
laughter, that joke becomes part of the evidence of who that person is and who they were when they were here and how you remember them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It reminds me again of that gentleman who, when he crossed over, said, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. That was humorous, and yet it was very powerful and profound for my client.
Right.
Yeah. So you can have a mixture of feelings too, profoundness plus humor.
Yes.
Together.
The almost seemingly solemn, that sense of total levity, like a bit of whimsy, as Gretchen had said, a little bit of whimsy.
That's right, a bit of whimsy. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, if you, all these years behind you, all this psychotherapy behind you, do you have something in addition to what we've already brought up as good ideas for the beginner medium, but do you have anything else you'd like to suggest to the beginner medium in regard to how they can support their journey, what they can watch out for, anything like that?
Yeah. There are several things. Okay, one, and I learned this from the medium I mentioned, who's very elderly now, that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
she would say, now, in the beginning, when you're first learning, she says it's like a water pump, what you're bringing in. Okay, at first there's going to be kind of like when you're working a water pump out in the country, you're going to see all sorts of sludge and stuff come out first before you get the good, clear drinking water that you can take in. Okay, so if you're at the beginning, and she says also too, never get attached to what you're saying. Okay, you bring it in, you say it. Okay, now in the beginning with she called it primary process, doing primary process. Okay, and that's when a lot of people will get uh, um, input concerning doom, gloom, that sort of thing, end of the world, lots of bad things happening. Okay, oftentimes that'll be part of primary process. So you just see that, acknowledge it, and let go of it. It doesn't mean you take to the streets saying, the end is coming. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't put up resistance to it either.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like when you're sitting on the porch and you see a car drive by. It's like, yes, there's a car. It's a red car. It's driving by. And then you start paying attention to a bird that's singing or another car that passes. Yeah, you don't attach to it. Okay. Like one of my clinical supervisors used to say in terms of therapy, he said, don't push the river, it flows by itself.
I love that.
So, yeah, so you don't attach to it, you don't clench on to it. It just goes by, you just acknowledge it, it's like, okay, there goes a car.
And you'll find this approach that you're talking of here, not getting attached, a part of almost every. I mean, you can confirm this for me because you're the studied one in terms of comparative religions. But my understanding is that every spiritual practice, every practice that's been defined out there, wants you to have that non-attachment at the higher levels of faith and spirituality. And that is in our best interest to do so.
It is. You don't want to latch on to things because then you stop the flow of life, your own process, the input that you're getting, no matter what it is you're dealing with. Okay, it stops the process. You don't want to attach. Now, one thing that people misunderstand about detachment is they think it means not caring.
Uh-huh.
And there's a term, karuna, in Buddhism, which means compassionate detachment. So you can be compassionate, caring with other people, being with them fully in the present moment, in the here and now, but you don't attach and clench on to what they're saying or what you're feeling.
Yeah, so what that reminds me of is when a client is across from you and the grief is coming up and they start to tear up, cry, and you can feel it, but you don't start crying with them. You don't run across the room and give them a hug. You detach, but you allow your healing energy to touch them in that compassionate manner.
Yeah, it's like, well, you can even have a tear escape. Okay. You don't get all absorbed in your own grief, but if you're feeling tears from what the client is saying and you can feel it, again, that empathic understanding, okay, you wipe away the tear and you stay focused on the client.
Right. And the spirit. You stay focused on the spirit because that's the person that is talking in the moment and their presence is affecting that individual. So you're allowed to continue. I know when this happens for me, I basically say to them, feel free to, let go, continue, especially if they're looking uncomfortable, right? If somebody's starting to tear up, they're trying not to. I said, no, that's fine. Just stop me if you need me to stop and give you a moment. Otherwise, I will keep speaking. I don't want to lose that flow I have with your person.
Yeah. Yeah. When clients start talking, well, when they start grieving, when they start, crying, because it can be a very profound kind of crying, like, oh, I'm finally connecting with so and so after all these years, or it could be, oh, the loss. Okay. I give them permission to cry. They'll say, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. And I'll say, it's okay to cry. It's natural to cry. You take your time. There's Kleenex right there. and they'll take the Kleenex. And again, if I'm feeling the grief also, again, just wipe the tear away and focus on spirit and the person. And because that's a very sacred moment when they're feeling it so deeply that, yeah, the tears do come. You can also feel it deeply without the tears. Okay, I don't want people thinking,
Surely,
oh, I
yes.
must not be feeling things right because I didn't cry.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, of the work you do as a medium, what is some of the very important values and practices you hold yourself to? What's important to you in the work you're doing? I think a lot of that can be distilled from what we've talked about today, but I'm just wondering if you've encapsulated that yourself with some very specific values and things you really hold yourself to while you're doing readings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One that is important that I'm still working on, it's challenging, is to take care of my own self better instead of uh, putting other people ahead in my life, like with family. Okay, if I'm needing to go to bed early, I'm learning to say to my friends on the phone, I'd love to talk with you longer, and it's getting to my bedtime.
Got it. Yes.
And people are very welcoming of that.
Yes.
Okay. But that's been something I've been working with. But yeah, eating right, making sure I get enough sleep. Um, I always examine what I'm thinking and feeling and what's being triggered by it. Okay. Also being aware too of when spirit's trying to speak with me, my own loved ones on spirit side, watching for the signs.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we're mediums, we know that everybody continues, the animals continue. Um, we can know this in our head. We feel it at deeper levels too when we're working with people. But still, we like to get some input for ourselves too. Okay. And we like to hear from grandmother or mom, older brother, whoever it might be. Yeah. And so we have to learn, okay, what is the language they use? What are the symbols they use?
So
Yeah.
if
Mm-hmm.
I was a client and I was coming to you, how would you tell me, what would you want me to know about the reading? What can they expect when they come to see you? Tell us a little more about the actual practice of you giving service in a mediumship session.
Okay, first thing I do is I talk about how we're going to go about doing the reading. In graduate school, we call this structuring the session.
Okay, yeah.
And so, because you don't know what kinds of thoughts and expectations people come in with, what kinds of movies they've been watching or stuff they've seen on television. Um, and so if that's going on for them, you want to be sure to address it. Uh, and also I like for people to be informed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will tell them that I'll start with a prayer, and then I raise my vibration, spirit lowers there, and we meet in the middle where they play charades with me. I tell them it's like charades, and I'll check and see if they know charades because some of the younger people don't, or they've
Right.
heard of it, but they're not sure. And I'll say too, so it's like charades. The only difference is with regular charades, it's all visual, but spirit uses all of the senses. And what they bring in could be either literal or symbolic or both. So I'll always check with you about the literal concrete meaning before I go into symbolism. So that way they know what's going on, and they can, as I bring things in, they can say, oh, well, that's so and so, or that's about thus and such. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I tell them about the limits of questions, how we don't say when someone's going to pass, we can't diagnose or prescribe, we don't get the lottery numbers. And also, I'll tell them too that if they ask about someone who's currently on the earth plane, like what are they thinking? What are they doing? I'll say that person is not here to give us permission to get into their energy. So I can't really give you that. Spirit won't give us that. And I said, but sometimes what spirit will do is they'll talk about your connection to them.
Yeah, and what you can as an
and what
individual
you can
in
do.
that relationship take responsibility for and make changes to improve the relationship from your perspective.
Right. Yeah, you're part of it.
Your
Yeah.
part of it. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
because you can't do anything about what someone else is doing. You can only take responsibility and choose what you do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And obviously we have your permission to get into your energy because you're here.
Exactly. You have a place to be here. You gave
Yeah. And yeah, and everybody likes that distinction. Okay. And also it lets them know too that if their mother is on the grounds getting a reading, mama won't be finding out what they're doing.
right. Yeah.
You know? So anyway, there's that. And they really like, getting what spirit will talk about, what they won't talk about. Okay. And that they can ask questions whenever they want. The more specific the question, the more information they'll get back.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll use the analogy, the everyday analogy of it's like the child uh, out at the sea with its mother, and it's saying to the mother, Mom, can you tell me about the sea, the ocean? What is this? And she might say, well, she might be talking about the fish in the sea, but he might be wanting to know, how did it get there? Why is it salty? Okay. So they'd be going off in two different directions. So, ask what it is you're wanting to know specifically.
Mhm.
Okay. And of course, I talk about the animals too.
Yes.
Yeah. And the differences between the way dogs come in and the way cats come in.
Oh, tell us about that. How is that different
Yeah.
for you?
Oh, I'm hearing somebody meow. I think it's one of my Siameses in spirit. Pavarotti always had something to say.
Pavarotti was his name?
I had a Siamese named Pavarotti. Yeah,
I love
because he
it.
always had something very vocal, and you
Well,
could hear him, at a long distance. So anyway, Pavarotti, please wait. And that's okay too. Like, as mediums, we do have others who that are connected with us who may try to pop in to say hi, especially cats who, cats do what they want to do, they'll even walk on the computer when you're on Zoom, put their face right up against the camera, and suddenly you got this big cat nose right there. uh, Cats do that anyway. Dogs will come in if they're your dog, or if they were connected to somebody connected to you, like family member or friend, or it could even be one of your ancestors. It could be grandparent or even great grandparent. And I'll get to, okay, there's a picture of your grandfather when he was a boy with this dog. If the person doesn't recognize it, and I'll see the little white scallopy edges around the picture. And it's like, you can go check out the picture, go look through the family photos. But see, dogs will do that. Oh, they'll also come in if they uh, were owned by a friend of yours too. Okay, if you knew the dog, or if the dog was connected to you in any way, shape, or form.
right.
Okay, through a friend, family member, whatever. And that's because dogs are pack animals.
Ah,
They go
yes.
in groups.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And so with the dog's person, okay, if it's not your dog, the dog's person is the connection. Okay, as far as that dog is concerned, yes, this was your brother's dog, but you're also part of the pack too. Or this was your friend's dog, and you're part of the pack too.
Right. And there's
So,
recognition for that. Right.
and there's recognition of that. Yeah. Yeah. On spirit side, they don't have any such thing as DNA or legal papers. It's all about who we are to each other. And that's true whether we're talking about animals or people. Okay. Because just like, there are people who can be like mothers to us, or or sisters to us. Okay, so getting back to the animals now. Yeah, dogs see everything in terms of packs, and they just accept you unconditionally, even if all you saw them was maybe once or twice. Okay, you're part of the pack.
Right.
Cats are a little bit more particular. I can feel that cat energy, Um, they're like that.
Yeah.
Um, Typically, a cat will come in if it is connected to you or connected somewhat to someone close to you. Okay. Cats aren't in the packs, although cats I've had have been very into their groups. They're very clique-like. And you're either one of us or you're not one of us.
Right. Yeah.
But
Cliques.
but that's
They're
been my
different
cats.
pack. Yeah. Having a
Yeah.
clique is different than a pack. Sure. I
Yeah.
love
Kind of
your
like
sorry.
oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's kind of like junior high with cats. You know how in junior high or middle school you have your cliques, or in high school you have cliques? That's how cats are. In fact, I heard someone say one time that dogs get you prepared for small children, cats get you ready for teenagers.
I love it.
So anyway, yeah, with cats, it's they'll come in, and of course the dogs too, they'll show uh, their colors, what size they were. They'll talk about the fur, if they were long haired or short haired. If the dog had a little stubby tail or long tail or feathering. And I can even feel sometimes the dog wagging its tail, which
Yes,
feels very funny.
it does. I've had that happen. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I
Uh-huh.
have now.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, they come in, they'll express their personalities. They are so funny. They'll make me laugh.
Yes.
Yeah. And I can even see them sometimes bumping their nose against my client's knee. And so I'll share that. And client will say, "Oh yeah, my dog used to do that to me all the time." I said, "Well, he's doing it now." So yeah,
Perfect.
they come in with a lot of joy. They really do. They really do. Yeah. And oftentimes they have a lot of thanks also. One
Got it.
thing I've found very consistently is when we've helped them cross over, as, or as they put it, been released, I'll see one of those thank you cards with the embossed gold lettering saying thank you. They use that as a symbol. Yeah, because even though they don't read, they've seen people do, use those.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I think spirit's going to give you what you need to see in order to say what you need to say. So even if they haven't known anything about writing, I know, has it ever happened to you though, that you've had the thoughts of the animal come through so that you could actually know what the animal was thinking? Have you had that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, like with euthanasia, and I get the thought, oh, the doctor finally gave me the right medicine.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finally gave me the right medicine
Yeah.
because they're not attached to their bodies the way we are.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So, obviously, listeners, if you want to connect with your pet, Brenda is an awesome medium for that on so many levels. So, that's awesome. Wonderful. Is there anything else you want to add before we close out here today, Brenda?
Mm. When we do, well, I do readings in two different places at my house. Sometimes, weather permitting, I'll do readings in my backyard. If
Ooh.
it's not conducive, I'll do, yeah, there's a great big wonderful shade tree there. Or if it's not conducive, I'll do it on my sun porch. And my two cats, Obie and Oliver, will oftentimes join us. They'll jump up in the window. They won't be in the reading with us, but they'll jump up on the window and press their faces against the glass, saying, hello, hello.
So, how do we
And
get a hold of you then so we can book that special experience?
all they have to do is just give me a call,
Okay.
okay? Or you can email me. My
Right.
email address is blhawk@netsync.net. I think
Okay.
that's on the website.
Yes. And yeah,
And
on the website under mediums, finding mediums.
Mhm. And my landline number is 716-595-2049.
Okay. And you still have openings this summer?
I still have openings for summer. Yes, and please don't try to text me on my landline, because being a landline, it won't accept it. So if you try to text me, you think I've gotten the message. No, I haven't.
Yeah, I know there's some people that come into Lilydale and they just blast everybody with the text. You know, there are some people that don't choose their medium, they just want a reading, so they'll blast us with text. So you're probably not getting those texts.
Right, right. And I also recommend too that people set up an appointment in advance.
Yeah, that's the best thing.
Yeah, because if you come in that day and say, "Oh, do you have any openings today?" Okay, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
Sometimes,
want to be sure to get quality time.
mhm, yeah. Because
I'm sorry, go
we
ahead.
do get exhausted. We do get tired in the summer, particularly because there are so much demand on our readings, and
Mm-hmm.
being there and being on for everyone. And we can only take so much, and each medium has a different level for that. And we need to address that and take care of ourselves, like you had mentioned earlier, Brenda. So it is important that
Right.
in advance is a really great idea. Although there are days when you might find somebody for a drop in, but yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
I always feel like it's better following your intuition. If they know they want to have an animal reading and have a medium that is really good at making that communication passionately, definitely seek somebody out that can do that. And obviously you're that person, but to just pick them on a list, it can be tricky. So this is why we're doing the conversation, so we give people a chance to have a little more education in terms of where they're gravitating to, where they feel intuitively they want to go to for a reading. Yeah.
Right. We've said that for a long time in Lilydale. In fact, go to whoever you feel drawn to,
Yeah, some
because
people
that's
might
a
be
message right there.
fine, or the vibe of the house even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people who came because of the vibe of the house. Yeah. And they would say, "This is a very spiritual house." And it's like, well, spirit's speaking to them, drawing them, you know, there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trusting
Yeah.
oneself is really, really important, because spirit's working through us, even if we're not mediums. They're guiding us. They're bringing us to places that align with our purpose and our soul's calling. So you want to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Right. And another thing I recommend too with people is, if you come to the Dale and you don't get to have a reading, um, it can be very productive to even just be in the Dale and be in the energy. And spirit's there. And if you're receptive and open, you might notice some ways that spirit's trying to speak with you. Like, say, for example, if you had a brother who always drove an orange Honda Element, unusual car, okay, and you
Yeah.
see one drive in as you're thinking about your brother, well, that's a message. And you
Yes.
have to be just kind of on your own, just being open to whatever's going on, to have that mental space to notice that and get that message.
Right. And you made
Mm-hmm.
a good point when you say, even if you don't get a reading. I think a lot of people think Lilydale is about readings only and that everyone's a medium there. And Lilydale is a
Mm-hmm.
spiritualist community. It has
Right.
people that can do mediumship, but they may not have become registered. It has everyday people leaving the Dale in the morning to go to their day job and to come home. I mean, it's a really interesting environment, but we are all spiritualists. So we have a spiritual alignment in terms of how we feel we want to live our lives and our principles and what we want to aspire to. So that is what makes us unique. And every summer we have our events coming up. That's going to be starting this weekend, actually. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so so we have all our activities, our educational opportunities, and like you said, you could just find a beautiful bench. We've got a labyrinth, we've got the fairy trail, we've got an area by the water where you can just stick your feet in if you want to. There may be a lifeguard there on some days. You can go for a swim. There's places to shop and places to drink coffee and just talk. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just such a beautiful grounds and such a beautiful historic location. So do what you can to come and see us. Absolutely, visitors, viewers, and spread the word. Let people know that we are a very special community that's ready and here to serve you, and that we have people like Brenda and myself and others that really want to be here for you. Thank you so much, Brenda, for coming today and spending time in conversation. I've had a blast. This has been wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you in the Dale very soon. And I'm going to have to pop by at some point and check out your cats, because I've never met your
They're very social. They're very social. They
Oh, I'm
love to
glad to
meet
hear
new
that.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, when you said about the sunroom and them being interested, I'm like, oh, they might like people. Yeah, so I'll come by at some point. I'll drift by. I'll probably give you a heads up, but
Okay, that's good because,
that.
yeah, because you never know what we're doing in the summertime. You know, there's
True.
so many things to do. The message services, the 2:30, the circles Monday night. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
But
and
yeah, I'd love to have you come and see Oliver and Obi.
yeah,
I
Oliver and
call them the O brothers. Yeah,
no
the O
brothers. I like
brothers.
that. Yeah, meet them for who they are, the teenagers that they are, right?
Right, they're actual biological brothers.
Oh, wonderful.
And their faces are identical. Okay. But their body markings are different from each other. And Oliver, his whole name is Sir Oliver Whitetoes of the Dale. That's his name. Because, you know, he's a cat, you know, just like Obi is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan
And so
Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so, yeah, they love to meet new people.
Oh,
They love to
awesome.
see who's
I'm
around.
definitely going to take some time to do that.
Yeah.
And also, I get the
Mhm.
privilege of seeing you again too, so that's important too.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to have you stop by. We'll have tea or something.
Oh, I would love that. That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
So, viewers, we look forward to seeing you this summer in Lilydale. It starts this weekend, so be sure to book your appointment with Brenda ahead of time and have a fabulous summer. Thanks,
It
Brenda.
was it was great being here, and I hope everybody has a wonderful summer too. And please come and see us in the Dale.
Bye, everyone.